have to give it a second to go. All right, hi, my name is Stormy Benzie. Today is April 25th, 2022, and I am doing my skills application for language methods and strategies for week 1. Today I have with me Jayden and Logan. We are going to be doing a lesson on sinking or floating. So, like I said, we're going to be doing this lesson today, and we are going, again, to be learning about sinking and floating. We have this tub of water over here, and we are going to be using objects, and we're going to see which of them sink or float. So, an object that sinks is the and the action of an object when it becomes submerged in liquid. So, when something sinks, that means that it's completely underneath of the water. If something stays on top of the water or doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the container, that means it floats. So, float is the action of an object when it sits on the surface of liquid. So, something doesn't have to float completely on top of liquid for it to float. It could just kind of float towards the top. So, all right. So, we are going to, like I said, do some sinking and floating. But before we start, I'm going to show you. So, I'm going to move this over here where we can see it. It's in a plastic container, but all I had was glass. So, we just got to be really careful with it. So, the two items that I picked that I'm going to decide if they're going to sink or float for me is I have this cap right here to some medicine, to some heartburn medicine, or I have a pair of tweezers. Now, do you guys have an idea of which? Oh, here. Oh, almost dropped it. I'll let each of you just hold them. Don't put them in the water. I was like, that's not, I'm going to do it. I just want you just to hold them and feel how heavy they are. And just hold it for a second, pass it to Logan, and then give them back. It's like, just so you can kind of feel how they are heavy. Which one, just by feeling those two, which one of these objects do you think is heavier? Yep, Jayden. Yep, the tweezers. Yep, good job. And you also pointed, so good job. So yes, and so yep, this one's heavier and this one's lighter. Just gonna look. Okay, so based on that, which do you guys think is? Do you think one's gonna sink, one's gonna float? Do you think they're both gonna sink? They're both gonna float? What do you think, Jayden? What do you think?
That one's gonna float.
You think these are gonna float? What if?
I know sink.
Sink?
I think that one is gonna float.
You think this one's gonna float?
Because that one's lighter, that one's heavier.
Right. Okay. So
that one has a bottom and that one doesn't.
Yes, you're all right. So let's see. Just want to look. Okay, so we're going to test this out now. I'm going to sit back so we can see. Actually, I meant to do one thing. I have a piece of paper. So I'm just going to write this, and then I'm just going to give this to you, and you guys are going to put the items in that pile. So like I said, we're going to do sink or float. And so after I decide which one of these items sink or float, we're going to put that item in that pile. So I'm going to write something that says sink. And then float. I almost forgot about that part. So I'm going to take these. They say sink and float, and we're just going to set them on either side of here. So then when we're done testing items, we can either put, if they sink, we'll put them over here, and if they float, we'll put them over here. Because we want to remember what sinks and what floats. Okay, so now we're going to test these items out. So we'll start off with these ones. So what did we think that these were going to do? You could just say it, both of you. You think they're going to sink? All right. So now we're just going to put it in and see what happens. So when we put stuff in, like I said, we don't want to just drop them in there heavy. We're not going to throw them in. We want to put them in there lightly because we're trying to not make too much of a mess. I did put a towel here if we have to dry our hands, but we're trying not to make a big mess. So I'm just going to put these in here and see what happens. Oh, but yeah, so yep, it's my dog thinks she needs to bark and she'll be okay. The dog's all right, so we'll put this over here. All right, so now we have this other item. So what did we think this one was going to do then?
Sink.
You think this one's going to sink as well?
No, float.
You think float? All right. So one moment. Actually, my dog. All right, there we go. Sorry, just wanted to make her stop barking. Okay, so now, like I said, we're going to try this item, and we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to set it in. We'll just drop it in there, and it floats, like you said.
We
But
got it right.
But like I was saying, let's see, because since we're doing that, let's see what happens if we put it this way. So it's not like a boat. It still floats. So I'll just try to push it down in the water a little bit and see what happens. It comes right back up to the top. So that shows us, yes, that this item does in fact float. So we'll leave these items here so you guys can see what happened. Let me look at my paper. All right, so before we start going, because now you guys are going to do this in a group. If we were in a big class, we would separate everybody into groups of 2, but it's just us, so you guys are just going to be one group of 2. Excuse me. So we're going to do this, and like I said, but before we do that, I want us to come up with a few rules for our group work, because we want, everyone to be respectful, because we guys are going to be talking and having discussions.
Responsible.
Yep, I have a couple. So yeah, we want us to be responsible. I think one way that you said we could be responsible is we can listen to others carefully. So I'm gonna
And safe. If we break the glass, we don't want to get caught.
Yes, so we shouldn't break the glass, but yes, if something were to happen and it were to break, you would tell me right away and I would clean it up because you guys need to be safe. So we'll say group work. So I'll put 1, we'll just be stay safe. Because we're just coming up with a few rules to write down. So if I need to while we're working, I can.
There was just water there.
Yeah, it's going to have water. It's all right. All right, so rule 2, I think we could do would be listen to others carefully. So like I said, we are going to be doing this, and you guys are going to be taking turns with your guys' items, figuring out which ones float, which ones sink. You guys are going to make guesses first on what you think are going to sink or float, and then you're going to test it. So this is a science experiment, kind of. So you guys first, before when scientists do science experiments, I can't talk. First, they make a guess on what they think was going to happen, and then they do a test to see if what they guessed was true. I guess I can't talk. All right, so they say we want to listen to others carefully. I think another one that would be good, since we're working in a group and we don't want to overtalk each other, is to talk or speak one at a time. So when it's your guys' turn to talk and make your guesses, you need to be, like you were saying earlier, Logan, be respectful of each other. You need to make sure you're giving each other time to talk.
And responsible.
Yeah, being respectful and responsible is all about letting people have their chance to talk. All right, so speak one at a time.
I'm stretching.
It's all right. I know. We're getting ready for you guys to do this. We're just writing out these rules. And then number 4, I think a good one would be another good rule. I'm dropping it. Is to talk about the text or topic. So what that means is that I don't want you guys to get off topic. We don't want to start talking about, because I know, like, I put down a cork. You guys said you had corks at home, but we don't need to talk about that, right now. We just are going to be working on this. It doesn't matter. It's just an idea. Like I say, like
I can reach now.
and you say that's good. All right, so I'm gonna write that down. Talk about the topic. And I was like, you don't. I was like, we got it. That's part of being responsible. Is not and staying safe is not messing around because that is made of glass.
If you throw something in there that's metal and heavy, it could break the glass.
All right, so I'm gonna show this list. So these are our rules. So I'm going to put these rules right here so you can see them. And if I'm going to be right here watching you guys while we do this, and if I have to, I'll remind you guys, let's stay on topic. So after we do that, I was like, do you think you guys can agree to these rules for me? If so, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you can talk about the topic. Yeah, that's a funny looking P. I was writing fast. But all right, can you guys follow those rules? The rule number 1 was stay safe. Rule number 2, listen to others. So, rule number 3, speak one at a time. And rule number 4, talk about the topic. So that's what I mean. We're going to stay talking about what we're doing today. So there's that. Let me read really quick so I know I'm on the right track.
Excuse me.
It's okay. All right, so now it's time for you guys to try this. So, a way to do this, I'm just gonna do this and say, Logan, pick a hand. All right, so Jayden, you'll go first. And I was like, that way it was easier. That way there's no arguing over who gets to go first. So we're just gonna, these are the items that we got today. We've got a hard covered candy. All right, so then we've got a couple soda lids, some quarters, a few pieces of paper, corks, and then we've got a button and this little metal plate. They're about the same weight. I couldn't find two buttons, so that's what we're going to use today. So, like I said, Jayden, you can go first, but first let's just put these items here. That way, I'm just going to separate them for you. So, like I said, there's no arguing. All right. So, like I said, we'll just put this, like I said, there's a sink, this is flow. So, we're going to start first. So, Jayden, we're going to start with you. Pick an object. And you're going to decide whether you make a decision or make a guess before you are. So, and do you think it's going to sink or float? Do you guys talk about it? I'm just watching. So,
Float. I think sink.
You think sink? All right. Well, I was like, since you have the same thing, you guys can both try then at the same. I mean, you guys just go at the same time.
You can go first.
No, the same object that she has.
This.
She picked that, but you get to pick next time. So, all right.
You can go first.
So you guys carefully put them in there and let's see who goes right.
I was right.
That's
no, I said float. He said sink. Wait. Oh, he was right.
It's okay. All right, good job. So just keep talking about it. You guys, Logan gets to pick. So Logan, you decide what item you want to use next. Yeah, those ones are going to be, since I said they've got that hard stuff on it. Yeah, that's what. All right.
It's going to sink.
What do you think? You talk to Jayden. You guys are talking about it. I'm just watching.
I think sink. I think sink too.
So really carefully put it in there.
No.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why we're testing our guesses. Bless you. Yep. So now you get to pick what item do you want to test? The paper. All right, and then what do you guys think? Talk about it.
Float. I was right. Wait. If they get soaker.
Right, and that is something.
Oh, what? No, but float.
It's still kind of floating. I think if it sat in there for a little longer, it probably would sink. But
it's sticking.
Well, yeah, and that's a little different than so.
It's sticking on me.
Yeah, like I said, that's what we have to have.
It floats, not sink.
Right, good job. All right, so now I think is it your turn now, Logan, to pick an item out of?
Yeah.
So okay, and then like I said, before you do it, talk about it.
Wait, no. Oh yeah, I picked the paper. Sink.
What do you think? Let's see.
Sink. What?
Oh, careful.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Wait. I just went.
Right, and and that did make us maybe try to set it and see if sitting it in there lightly. See, no, but looks like it sinks. I almost said the wrong thing too. Right, so let me look at this. What you guys are doing that. You guys are doing a good job.
Mine went. I went like this.
It's okay. All right, so keep working. Then you guys have a couple more objects.
I will pick. You have the cap to pick. No. Oh yeah.
So wait, before you do it, talk about it. What do you guys think is gonna happen?
Sink. Ha!
Good job. All right, so I think you guys last item that you're gonna test out, and
Can we do it again?
It's just the same items. I just don't have any more items, and we want to keep going on this.
Can we try a pencil?
We could probably try a pencil, but that will be the last item. But let's do this item really quick. So, what do you guys think? You have your last item.
Float.
What do you think?
Sink.
You think sink? All right,
No,
let's
float.
float. All right, let's put it on there. So yeah, and even if we fill it up with water,
Float.
yep, it will still
A
float.
little
Like
sink. Back to the bottom.
Oh, it comes back up to the top.
Watch out, watch out.
Oh, be careful. We don't want to do that because we don't want to make a splash. All right, good job. All right, so put it off to the side or in where it
Down
goes.
to the bottom if we do this.
So yep, that floated. All right. So then you guys, actually, I only have the 2 pencils. If we put the pencils in the water, they won't be able to write. Pencils, if we get them all wet, they won't write, and you guys need them. So we're just gonna. I know you guys want to do more, but we're gonna call that good. You guys did a really good job. So we're just gonna talk about it. No, because I don't want to make a mess. It's nice.
Wash my fingers.
Right? I was like, if you need to dry your hands.
Oh, wash this.
I was like, it'll be okay.
Is that your husband's?
It's for the dog. It fell off his collar. All right, but if you need to dry your hands, we'll dry your hands. So now we've just got our sink and our float piles left. So if you need to unfold it some to dry your hands better. I was just giving you guys an opportunity to get all dry.
Now that's dry. Logan, no.
We're not quite done.
I'm a sucker too. Do you have 2 suckers up there?
Maybe in the car. We're not worried about that right now. That's something we're going to worry about after the lesson. Okay, so talking about our items that sunk and our items that floated. After doing this, is there any of these items that just completely surprised you? That you were sure it was going to float and it sank, or opposite? You were sure it was going to sink and it floated?
I forgot if the sinks are float.
Oh, look at what pile it's in. I was like, that's why we separated them. So if we forgot, we would still have it. We could remember. So the reason this was there anything? Like I said, just don't mess with them. Is there any of these items that surprised you that you really thought was gonna sink or float? And okay, so that one. So
These 2.
those 2.
I thought that was gonna sink, but it flipped.
All right, that's a really good example. Okay, so that is the reason it is because of something called buoyancy. So buoyancy is the ability to float on liquid.
Because this is really a little heavy.
Yeah, well, but that's not always about what buoyancy does. Here, stop. Here, I'm gonna have to pick up all these pieces if we can't not play with them. I was leaving them there so we could see them because we're trying to finish up. Okay, so like you said, one of the reasons that this floats and doesn't sink is because of something called buoyancy. Like I said, buoyancy is the ability to float on water or liquid. A beach ball is very buoyant and a marble is not very buoyant. And here, stay sitting on your bottom. We're almost done. I was like, a beach ball is very buoyant, and something like a marble is not. And this is because a ball of air has less density than a ball of water. So I'm trying to explain. So even though you thought this would sink, the way it's made, it's got air in it, and also it's also lighter, which it's okay. We're not. So that's what we're learning today. And like I said, we're almost done. Come on, let's stay on topic. We're almost done. I know it's getting towards the end, and I know the day is getting towards the end of the day. You guys already had school, but all right. So okay, so now we have 2 things that we're gonna do. All right, we're almost. All right, so please stay on topic, Logan. We're almost done. Like I said, like you were in a classroom, your teacher would ask you to stay on topic. That's what we're pretty much doing.
What does topic mean?
It means what we're talking about. So like right now we're talking about sinking and floating. Those are our topics. So that's why we said talk about the topic. We're only talking about what was going on today. We're almost done with this. So now on your guys' own. So Logan, I'm gonna have you come sit here, and then Jayden.
I'm here.
Oh no, I want you to pull your chair over and just sit and use this. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys these papers.
So we don't see each other's papers.
Yes.
And move this.
If you want, I'm gonna give you this to help give you a little hard surface. I just don't think this is gonna. You just because you have to.
It's okay.
All right.
I want blue.
Whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. All right. So listen for a second.
Write
Let me.
our name?
You can. Yep. Write your name at the top.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying you might need something because it's soft. You can just move the book as you write in the spot. Oh, good job. All right. So again, I'm gonna like I said, buoyancy. So look at some of these items that we got on here. Buoyancy is the ability to float in a liquid.
So we circle which one and floats.
Well, you can just move it down. Like you can, the paper can move when you're. If you need to write here, you move it here. If you need to write up here, you move it like this. You can move the paper around. Because, like I said, you just do one at a time. So we are going. So what we want to do is circle the options that would be buoyant. And like I said, buoyant means the ability to float in water. So just by looking at these pictures and what we learned, which items do we think would float? So we're going to circle the ones we think would float. So we've got an empty water bottle, a construction block. I'm just reading them for you. A cork, which we might know that one. We did some. A pumpkin and an anvil. An anvil is like a big chunk of metal. So
yeah, and some people put them in their
so
houses and hit them with guys. I didn't know which ones that flow.
which ones do you think there isn't really right? We're just which ones do you think float based on what we've done today? So circle those ones and then we'll come back together after you circle them.
Hey, they're looking at my paper. I mean, not this.
You know, I never told her she was right or wrong. You don't. I'm on it and. All right. All right. So I'm just gonna look.
I circled 3. And I don't care if he copies my paper.
So yeah, we're just like I said. This is just
You copy my
practice.
paper.
Well, we don't need to go where this is independent work. So. All right. 1 second. All right, so let me see what I'm just going to collect them from you. Actually, just give me one. Let me see what this says. All right, so yep. So what we were going to do. So now you guys did that. It's the same. It's the same thing, but we're doing before. We're gonna.
That is C.
So these instructions on this one are a little different.
Sink or float.
Yes. So this time there will be a shape around every object, but depending on it. So you're gonna circle.
I didn't know that on this.
You're gonna circle the objects that float. So a circle on the ones that can float, and ones that you think are gonna sink, you put a square around. So like I said, so if it floats, if you think it's gonna float, a circle, and you think it's gonna sink, put a square. And so there, I'll let you guys do that and think what you. If circles float, I was just whatever you think, just think about, like that, how heavy an object is when you've held it in your hand for when you've really had it.
That one 8 is actually gonna sink because it's a bowling ball, and that's gonna sink because it's magnet.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it once we're all done. Like I said, yeah, squares around the ones you think that will sink, and circles and circles around the ones that will float. I'll make sure I wasn't telling you wrong. Don't want to confuse you.
Done.
All right. That's all right. Right now we're just finishing up.
Hey. I've seen a video where he had sunk.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you your guys' papers back, and we're just going to talk about a little bit the objects that we picked.
I don't want to bring one to.
You don't have to. That's fine.
I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Oh, you say you don't have to. These are just, like I said, we're just going to talk about it. Oh.
No.
Well, we're talking about them now. So I was like, pencils should be down. Did you finish everything on this page? Yep, you did. So yeah, so pencils are down. Now we're just talking about it. So we'll talk about this one first. That way we're on the same page. Okay, so on this first page, the buoyancy page, you guys circled. I see, or not the circled, but the first item was an empty water bottle. Just you guys can just say, what do you think that's gonna do? Sink or float?
Sink. Float.
Oh, well, you circled it. So
Actually, no, float.
yeah, I was like, you circled it on your paper. Circle means float. All right, what about a concrete block? The next picture, sink or float?
Sink. Sink.
Oh,
Because it's heavy.
Yep, you're right. Like I said,
if you put it in a glass bowl, it will break.
Yeah, that might actually break the glass bowl. You're right.
Sometimes, these break bowls, glass bowls, and metal bowls.
So yeah, they're pretty heavy. All right, so the next.
I can break a bowling ball.
Yeah, what was the next picture? You guys want to say? Tell me.
Clock.
And what do you guys think? We kind of know that one because that was one of our items.
Sink.
Did it?
No float.
Yeah, I was like, did it sink? I was like, I think it floated.
Float, float, float.
All right.
Hey, you stopped me.
It's okay. I was like, he had it circled first. It's okay. Maybe he thought the same thing as you. That wasn't the instructions on this paper, but technically, if you followed the you don't have to do that because those weren't the instructions on this paper. Okay, so then the next item was a pumpkin. What do you guys think? Sink or float?
Sink. Float, actually.
So yeah, and you guys are actually right because I'm trying to remember. It explained water buoyancy is the pumpkin has less or more buoyancy than the water. So then the pumpkin floats on the water, just like apples would float on water. That's why sometimes on Halloween, people like to bob for apples.
They don't float.
They do. Have you ever seen people bob for apples on Halloween or on a movie? I say, and that last, what was the last one? It's okay though. This is we're learning today. That's what this was about. So it's okay.
Yeah, float.
Yeah, they float. I was like, it's okay if you didn't get it perfect right. We're learning right now. That's why we're doing this.
Sink, no, float, float. Sink, sink. Float, sink.
I was like, pretty close. What do you have, Logan? What do you think on that second page?
Sink, sink, float, sink, float, float.
So you guys are pretty close. So for a wooden log, actually, since we were done with the pencils, I can show you because that would be a good example because pencils are made out of wood. And wood actually floats. Yeah, that's why it's like.
Hey, I can write with my pencil now.
And I was like, we're done with them. That's why I said it's okay because it can be written with later. It just has to dry. We're done writing, so that's what. And it might still write some. It just is going to be a little weird because it's kind of wet now. Okay, so then a key. What did you guys think for a key? Sink or float?
Sink.
What do you think, Jayden?
Float.
Okay, so actually, I was like, I have keys somewhere, but a key would kind of almost be like that button or the cord.
Where's your truck keys?
It's a button key. It's like a fob. It's not a key because it's a new car, or a new truck, so it doesn't. I can't put in the water over it when it.
Where's your other car?
It's the same type of, but an example of that would kind of be almost like because keys are made out of metal, almost kind of like the tweezers are. So keys actually would sink. Yes, just kind of like this. There we go. I don't know what.
It's right here.
I wasn't looking for the button. I was looking for the dog collar thing.
It's right here.
Oh, so yeah, so kind of like this. Like this is a piece of metal, and this is really light. Like some people might have said this might float, but it actually sinks. So.
It's metal.
Yep. That's
part
why.
of it.
And it's and that's kind of a little thing because some buttons might actually float because some buttons are made out of plastic. But the ones that are there are made out of.
This do?
It sunk. Remember? Yep, it sunk. All right, so let's keep moving on. Okay, so the next item on the middle one was a magnet. So what did you guys think?
Float.
What do you think? What do
Sink.
you?
Because it's part of metal.
Right, and most metals.
And this is metal.
Sink because they're heavy. Bowling balls, I don't really know if they're metal. They're kind of made out of
plastic.
I think they're made out of like cement or something. And it might not be cement, but it's something heavy like that. Okay, so yeah, the
this is kind of made out of metal.
These are made out of metal. Anvils are made out of they're big metal things. This is made out of cement. Concrete blocks are made out of concrete or cement. That's another way you could put it. All right, so right, I know. Okay, so bowling ball. What do you guys think? Sink or float?
Sink.
Look at your paper. I was like, yep, that's what you had was sink. Good job. And you're right. Yep, those would sink. I wish I had videos for all of these items so I could show you that you guys are right. Okay, so and then an apple. We kind of just talked about this. It was almost like those pumpkins. So what do we think? Sink or float?
Sink.
It was like, what do you have?
Float, actually.
Yeah, float. Yep. I was like, look at your papers. I was like, I know you looked back at the pumpkin, but you have it circled. So.
Yeah, float.
Yep. And then one last thing, which I see that you guys, that was the first thing you guys both circled on this paper was a rubber duck.
Teacher. Flute.
Yep.
Because it's made out of rubber.
Yeah, and they're just, a lot of times people have rubber ducks in the bathtub. That's a really common bathtub toy.
Is your teacher going to see the show?
She will eventually, yep, because she's got to see how I'm doing because I'm still learning.
Tomorrow she has to go to school and show her the video.
Well, I submit it to my teacher another way, but alrighty, so that was that. So now we are going to watch this video that I have for you to kind of wrap up. So, and like I said, I already asked you guys, were you surprised about any of the results? And you guys told me that cork is what surprised you. And maybe any of those other pieces of paper, what we just talked about, any of those items on those pictures right there that surprised you? I say, yeah, that's perfect. I say, if not, that's okay. So now, let me see.
Is it still recording?
It is, yep, we're almost done. So again, do we remember?
Why is she doing part of,
because it's paused. Because she's talking with her hands. A lot of people talk with their hands. Here, I was like, I know I turned this on, but if we can't focus, I can turn the back on for a second because we're still talking. So, Jayden, how would you explain if someone, let's say you had to explain what float meant to somebody, what would you say? Like, how would you, what does it mean if an object floats? What about if it sinks? What does it do in the water? If it floats, what does it do in the water? You know what it does. We've been doing this the whole time. It either stays at the top or goes to the bottom. What do you think? If it
this is heavy. That would sink.
Yes, it would, but we're not worried about that right now. It's got coffee in it, but like I said, we're not worried about it right now. Okay, so like I said, if I put the pencil in there and it floated, what does that mean it does in the water? Does it stay at the top or does it go to the bottom?
Stay at the top.
Yep, it stays at the top. So what about Logan? If it was going to sink, what does that mean it would do?
Stay at the bottom. Go to the bottom.
Yep, it goes to the bottom. All right, so now, I said we are going to, I was going to read this book, but I could not get it, so we are just going, I found a read aloud of it, and so we're going to watch somebody else read it to us.
What's the book called?
She's going to tell us. It's called What Sinks, What Floats, Look at Destiny by Jennifer Boothroyd, I think is how you say that, but like I said, she'll tell us. So now we're going to give her our attention and read this book to finish up what we talked about today.
So we're going to take a closer look at sinking and floating by reading this awesome nonfiction.
Okay, so that's really quiet. So actually, I'm going to see if I can pull that up over here. I'm going to pause this for a second. All right, so now that I've got this set up, we'll watch this video.
Floating by reading this awesome nonfiction book. Nonfiction means that a book is completely true and gives you facts about something. So what is this part of the book? It's the front cover. This is the back cover. This is the spine. Who writes the words? The author writes the words, and then the illustrator draws the pictures. So before we begin reading, we need to learn some of the words that we're going to encounter. So we're going to flip to the glossary. Right, so the glossary is usually at the back of the book, and it has a list of words and tells you what the words mean. So the word float means to rest on top of a liquid or to rise in the
I
air.
wanted you to get closer so
So
you could
floating
hear.
is when something stays up high.
Sitting.
Please stand.
So a gas is a substance that will spread to fill out any space that contains it. So like the air you breathe is a gas. A gas is free flowing, like that's an example of a gas is my breath breathing. So next is a liquid. A liquid is a wet substance that you can pour. So for example, water is a liquid. Our next word is sink. It means to drop in a liquid or to fall down through the air. So like if you were to pick up a rock and drop it and the rock sinks through the air to go to the ground. The next word is solid, something that is firm and neither a liquid nor a gas. So a solid is something that doesn't really change shape. So this is an example of a solid. So I can bend it, it's not moving, it's
solid.
solid.
It doesn't move. That's what she's saying.
Now let's start reading the book. Floating and sinking. An object floats when it rests on top of a liquid or when it rises in the air. Apples float in water. Hot air balloons float in the air. You can see that the apples are on top of the water, so they're floating. An object sinks when it drops down in a liquid or when it falls down through the air. Rocks sink in water. Rocks would also sink in air. These pebbles can't float in the water. They couldn't float in the air either. Solid objects are not the only things that float and sink. Liquids and gases do too. A bubble is a liquid with gas inside it. Bubbles float. Corn oil and syrup are both liquids. Corn oil floats in syrup. Do you see the corn oil floating on the surface of this syrup? Do you see how the color is clear for the corn oil and dark for the syrup? The clear is on top, so the corn oil is floating.
I'm gonna pause it for a second. So another example would be like water and like the gas we put in cars. If we were to pour a little bit of water and a little bit of gas into the same container, the gas would actually float on top of the water because they have different buoyancies, which we were talking about earlier. Good. Just keep watching.
Milk and chocolate sauce are liquids. The sauce sinks in the milk. Helium is a gas. Air is made of many gases. Helium balloons float in the air. Gases such as propane and butane do not float in air. The helium inside these colorful balloons allows the balloons to float. Now we're going to read about
so like she said, some gases float. So like, you know how some balloons float and some balloons don't? Like if you go to the store and you fill it up with the gas at the store, those balloons will float. But if you blow into a balloon with your mouth, that's not going to float because those different gases have different buoyancies.
Day floating and sinking. People use things that float and sink every day. Anchors like this one sink to the sea floor. A hook sinks to catch a fish. People use hooks when they go fishing. People travel in a hot air balloon. How is floating and sinking important to you?
They only float when you put a bobber on them.
Alright, so I hope you enjoyed reading this nonfiction book with me about floating and sinking. Now you can take what you learned from the book and do the experiment. The experiment is getting a bucket.
We already did that, so we're going to pause that there because the lesson that I found told us to show you this video at the end of the experiment. So that was another little video on floating and sinking, or not another video, but a video that kind of just explains a little more what we did today. I hope you guys actually learned something, and I hope you had a little fun. And let's thank my teacher and tell her goodbye. Bye. And I now realize that I made a mistake at the beginning of my video. This is actually for my STEM class, not my language methods and strategies. I apologize. Thank you.